Hello students, today we shall discuss on the topic solidification and non-ferrous foundry practice. What is solidification? Solidification is a process by which a substance undergoes a phase transformation from liquid state to a solid state. So it is also known as a freezing, where the phase change of a matter that results in the production of a solid. So this generally occurs when the temperature of a liquid is lowered below its freezing point. Water converting to ice is a simple example of solidification process. Although the freezing point and melting point of most material are the same temperature, this is not the case for all substances. So the freezing point and the melting point are not necessarily interchangeable. For example, agar, a chemical that is used in the food and the laboratory, it melts at 85 degrees centigrade, yet it solidifies from 31 degrees centigrade to 40 degree centigrade. Solidification is nearly always an exothermic process, which means that heat is released when a liquid changes into a solid. So the only known exception to this rule is the solidification of a low temperature helium, where energy must be added to helium 3 and 4 for freezing to take place. Now whereas in casting process, as the molten metal is poured into the mold cavity, it begins to cool. Now when the temperature drops below the freezing point of the material, the solidification starts. It should be noted that the change from the liquid state to the solid state does not occur all at once. Instead, it proceeds through a series of events. Hence, it is important to know the various changes that occur when molten metal solidifies. All metals shrink during the change of phase from liquid to solid state. However, different metals shrink at different rates, and as such, proper understanding of solidification mechanism is very essential to prevent defects due to the shrinkage of metal. Furthermore, during solidification, the atoms in the material are rearranged, leading to the change in the microstructure of the material. The changes in the microstructure results in changes in the properties of the material, such as strength, toughness, ductility, etc. So thereby controlling the solidification process suitably, the microstructure and hence the properties of the material can be altered as desired. Other examples of solidification are formation of snow, solidification of melted candle wax, or lava hardening into a solid rock. Nucleation. When a liquid cools below its freezing point, it starts to solidify and the atoms of the liquid metal begins to bond together, forming a very small sized crystal called nuclei. Now this process takes place at several locations as shown in the figure. The formation of new crystals is known as nucleation, and the point where it occurs is the nucleation point. As the solidification progresses, the crystal increase in size by the progressive addition of atoms and grow until they impinge upon the adjacent growing crystal. The crystal growth continues in 3 dimensions, forming a tree-like appearance known as the dendrites. Now dendrites grow in different directions in each crystal, and finally when one dendrite impinges upon the adjacent dendrite, a grain boundary is formed as shown in the figure. The crystal growth ceases when all the available liquid metal has solidified. So now if you revisit the steps in the formation of a grain, first the submicroscopic crystallite nuclei try to form around a submicroscopic impurities. Then the dendrites begin to form around these submicroscopic impurities. Later, the dendrites grow in all the directions and also dendritic arms are formed. Now, when the molten metal solidifies completely, then the grain boundary is visible. Types of nucleation. Now, it is observed that nucleation is helped by the presence of foreign elements or impurities present in the molten metal. Now, depending upon the role of these foreign elements, nucleations are classified into homogeneous nucleation and heterogeneous nucleation. When the nucleation takes place in the liquid metal without any help of the impurities, it is known as a homogeneous nucleation or self-nucleation. Nucleation based on this mechanism takes place in pure liquid metals only. While on the other hand, when the nucleation takes place with the help of impurities, it is known as heterogeneous nucleation. Now, impurities can be in the form of a sand particle, alloy additions, or oxides, or even the surface of the mold wall. Now, thus, in this casting process, in the usual casting process, nucleation is heterogeneous. Homogeneous nucleation. Now, this type of nucleation is observed when solids are formed within its own melt without the aid of any foreign particles. Now, this occurs in perfectly homogeneous material such as pure metals. Homogeneous nucleation requires some amount of undercooling, and the nucleation of supercooled grains depend upon two factors, that is volume free energy and surface free energy, where volume free energy is the free energy available from the solidification process and it depends upon the volume of the particle formed, and surface free energy is the energy required to form a solid liquid interface. Heterogeneous nucleation. Now, this takes place due to the influence of foreign particles. Now, the presence of impurities lower the liquid solid interface energy and helps in nucleation, thereby reducing the amount of supercooling needed to actuate nucleation. Now, the basic requirements for heterogeneous nucleations are nucleating agents, that is the presence of foreign particles so that nucleation takes place. Second is the low contact angle, that is a good wetting between the liquid metal and the foreign particles. Once the initial nuclei is established, two possibilities exist for further crystallization. That is, more solid may be deposited upon the first nuclei or fresh nucleation may occur, but growth might be expected to predominate over further nucleation. However, there could be barriers to growth resulting from the evolution of latent heat of crystallization, and in case of alloys, from the change in composition of the adjacent liquid through differential freezing. So, now if we compare between homogeneous and heterogeneous nucleation, homogeneous nucleation occurs in pure metals, whereas heterogeneous nucleation occurs in alloys. Nucleation happens by deposition of atoms from its own melt in homogeneous nucleation, but when it comes to heterogeneous, the nucleation happens by the influence of the foreign particles. It does require some amount of undercooling for nucleation in homogeneous, whereas for heterogeneous nucleation, undercooling is less as compared to the homogeneous nucleation, and homogeneous nucleation starts below the equilibrium freezing temperature, whereas for heterogeneous nucleation it starts comparatively at a much higher temperature. Solidification variables. The solidification process by which a liquid metal freezes in a mold plays a crucial role, because different solidification conditions give rise to different microstructures, and hence the properties of the cast alloy. The variables affecting the solidification behavior of a casting includes the type or composition of the casting alloy. Now here an alloy consists of a base metal to which other elements are added to obtain the favorable properties. Now when a metal is added to the base metal, it significantly alters the solidification process. Now this is because an alloy freezes over a range of temperatures. Thus, a proper control of alloying elements promotes constitutional supercooling, and further the additional use of inoculating agents promotes heterogeneous nucleation, resulting in a fine-grained structures in the cast material. Second is the thermal properties of both the alloy and the molding material and the cooling rate. The heat released during the solidification is very large, and as such it must be extracted quickly. The higher the melting point and thermal conductivity of the materials used in the casting process, the larger is the latent heat of fusion. Further, the heat that is extracted per unit time is defined as the cooling rate, and this depends mainly on the mold material and the air gap formed at the metal mold interface. High cooling rate promotes directional solidification at a faster rate with finer grains, while low cooling rate exhibits larger grains. Now it is important to note that grain size affects the strength and hardness of the casting. Also, metallic molds produce higher cooling rate than a sand mold under the same operating conditions. Third one, mold thickness and shape. The thickness of mold influences solidification time, that is the heat removal rate. In case of a sand mold, heat removal rates are increased by the decrease in the mold thickness below a certain critical thickness. However, for the same thickness, solidification is faster in case of metallic molds. Chills, gating and other casting design factors. Solidification takes place at a certain rate relative to the thickness of the casting. A casting should be designed to achieve controlled progressive directional solidification so that it becomes free from solidification related defects. Location of gates and risers, use of chills and other means for controlling the freezing process must be adopted suitably for complete solidification to take place. Pouring temperature. Pouring is a process where the molten metal is transferred to the cast for cooling and solidification and thus be converted into a final product. Pouring temperature is the temperature where the molten metal has to be raised before being poured into the cast for cooling and setting. Now this pouring temperature must take into account the heat loss and due to the transfer of metal through ladles, as the distance between the furnace and the cast has to be covered, and also due to the heat absorbed by the ladles. So the pouring temperature of the molten metal must be higher than the solidification temperature of the metal. Now this will help the molten metal to flow into all regions of the mold before solidifying and overcomes the solidification related defects. However, the temperature of the metal must not be very high, as this might saturate the gases resulting in the formation of oxides. Also, the molten metal at the high temperature has the ability to penetrate into the surface of the mold material. Directional solidification. As the molten metal cools and solidifies in the mold, it shrinks or contracts in volume. Due to the varying sections of the cast part and different rates of heat loss to adjoining mold walls, some portion of the molten metal tends to solidify more quickly, resulting in the voids and cavities than other portions. Now these voids must be filled with the incoming liquid metal from the feeder, that is riser. Hence, the casting must be so designed with respect to the feeding system such that the part of the mold that is farthest from the feeder head must solidify first and then proceed through the casting towards the feeder head. Now, the solidification which is made to occur in this particular direction is known as directional solidification. Directional solidification can be described as solidification of a molten metal taking place in such a manner that liquid feed metal is always available for that portion of the metal that is just solidifying. It can also be described as the solidification of molten metal taking place progressively from the thinnest part, which solidifies first, and towards the feeder head, which is the riser, which solidifies at the last. Now, directional solidification and progressive solidification or parallel solidification are the two types of solidification in casting, and these are not to be confused with each other. Although these processes share the common trait, the difference lies in that the progressive solidification, the cooling and solidifying process begins at the walls of the casting and works its way inwards, while directional solidification, the process of solidification begins at the bottom of the casting and works its way up to the top. Need for directional solidification, that is, for the easy control of the shrinkage, it is preferable that solidification starts from one end and progresses towards the other. So, normally solidification should progress towards the riser end, as I discussed in the earlier slide. So, this just helps in the efficient feeding of the casting by the riser. Thereby, the structure and the properties can be controlled. So, in the figure you can see how the solidification occurs. So, foam is slowly drawn out of the furnace into the coolant. So, crystal growth begins on cold side of the foam, and the crystals elongate along the temperature gradient and fully solidified oriented polycrystalline casts. Methods of factors controlling directional solidification. Now, the various methods of directionally solidifying a molten metal and hence obtain a sound casting is listed and discussed as follows. Proper design and positioning of the gates and risers. Now, the shape of the riser must be such that it must lose minimum heat, keeping the metal in the molten state. Now, this can be met with the spherical shaped riser. However, its incorporation in the mold is difficult. So, the next best shape is cylinder than the square. Now, cylindrical riser is the commonly used, and it must be at least 15 to 20% larger in diameter than the section it is required to feed. Now, the riser height is usually 1.5 times greater than its diameter. To increase volume to surface area ratio, the bottom of the cylindrical riser can be shaped as hemisphere. The riser must be positioned suitably so that solidification is directional from the casting extremities towards the riser. Second one, the use of insulating pads and sleeves for risers. The sides of the riser are insulated with sleeves made from suitable material so as to achieve lower solidification rate in the riser. Now, this enhances better feeding of the casting. Sleeves made from plaster of Paris are used for non-ferrous castings, while perlite sleeves or fireclay sawdust sleeves are used for ferrous castings. Cellulose materials like rice hulls are also used. Insulating pads can also be employed in various parts of the mold to decrease the cooling rate in thin sections so as to promote directional solidification. Use of chills in the mold. A chill is a metallic object of suitable shape inserted in the sand mold to improve solidification of a region of the casting inaccessible to a riser, thereby promoting directional solidification. A chill will produce local chilling and equalize the rate of solidification throughout the casting. A chill may be classified as internal chill or external chill depending upon its location in the mold. Chills placed inside the mold cavity are called internal chills. When the cavity is filled with molten metal, the chill will melt and become a part of the casting. Thus, internal chills are made from same material as the cast part. On the other hand, external chills having high thermal conductivity are placed on the edge of the mold cavity, thereby it forms a part of the wall of the mold cavity. External chills are used to increase the feeding distance of a riser or reduce the number of risers. Use of a blind riser. A conventional riser is open to the atmosphere, whereas a blind riser is completely enclosed sand mold. As a result, the molten metal in the blind riser cools slowly and stay liquid longer, thereby promoting the directional solidification. And the last one, use of exothermic riser compounds. Exothermic riser compounds are the loose materials which are essentially a mixture of metal oxides like iron, manganese, nickel, copper, etc., and aluminium sprinkled on the top of a riser in place of an insulating powder. Their function is to prevent heat loss from the top of a riser and also add some heat to the molten metal in the riser, thereby allowing the metal to stay hotter, necessary for achieving the directional solidification.